Our smartphones are no longer any less powerful than a mid-range laptop. Unfortunately, the form factor limits the user from realizing the full potential of the powerful pocket PCs that we carry every day, which is why I'm always excited at the prospect of a true external desktop mode, which allows the device to extend to a larger screen, enabling far better usability for both productivity and entertainment. Although most brands and influencers continue to ignore this feature, Samsung and Motorola have been an exception. While Samsung is considered and truly is the leader in this space, how does Motorola's solution compare? So, in this video, we will compare Motorola Smart Connect, previously known as Ready For, against the latest version of Samsung Dex OneUI 8.5 on my Galaxy S26. But before that, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications. Okay, so quick setup description here. I've connected both the phones using a single Type-C cable through DP-Alt to my monitor. It also supports up to 90-watt power delivery, and my keyboard and mouse are connected to my monitor's USB hub. This is an extremely value for money high-end gaming monitor with up to 4K 160Hz and features 1152 zone full array local dimming for true HDR 1000 experience. So first we will start with the input situation. So with Motorola you get the option to use the phone itself as a trackpad, which is very convenient. There are also different types of input like using the entire phone as an air mouse and being able to scroll without using two fingers. You can also easily switch between the audio output devices. There are different types of gestures that are supported. You can get to know them from the trackpad tips. Moving on to Samsung, it also supports using the phone as a trackpad. However, it offers a lot more customization with respect to physical keyboard inputs as well as mouse inputs. A lot of Windows-specific keyboard shortcuts are supported, which makes navigating the UI and managing Windows a lot more seamless, especially for those who are coming from the Windows operating system. When it comes to cons for the input, there is a major and a minor one both with Motorola. So check this out. If you have a keyboard plugged in, then on the Motorola you cannot use the same keyboard to enter text on the phone screen, which is quite bizarre to me. As you can see, I can type on the external monitor, but even when I select the text box on the phone screen, I cannot use the same keyboard to enter text on the phone. I have to click on this hamburger menu and pull up the on-screen keyboard to enter the text. And this goes along with the next con, which is on the Motorola, you cannot drag the cursor across the external monitor to the phone screen. So basically on the Motorola, you have to lift up your hand from the keyboard and mouse to operate the phone. On the Samsung, you can basically operate the phone without having to lift your hand off your keyboard and mouse, because you can not only input text on the phone screen using the physical keyboard, but also you can drag the mouse across the screens effectively, allowing you to operate the phone without having to physically touch the phone. Another quick but important point to mention is that both Motorola and Samsung allow you to turn off the phone screen while using the external desktop mode. On Samsung, you can just use the lock button, but on the Motorola, you have to double tap to turn off the screen. Pressing the lock button on the Motorola will lock the external desktop mode as well. Okay, next, what about resolution and refresh rate? So both Moto and Samsung can output up to 4K resolution. On the Moto, 4K is supported out of the box, but on the Samsung it is limited to 1440p. So you need to install a good lock module called as Multi-Star to unlock 4K resolution on Samsung. However, both Moto and Samsung are limited to 60Hz when it comes to the refresh rate. I remember seeing a video one time where a Lenovo tablet allowed choosing refresh rate options for the external monitor. So it's possible that Lenovo or Moto reserves these options for tablets only for some reason. But yeah, 60Hz makes no sense. DP 1.4 Alt protocol should allow 1440p 120Hz at least, if not for 240Hz. Motorola has this option to mirror the screen using the display aspect ratio to minimize letterboxing, but trust me, this does not work. I have tried it, the aspect ratio is still as the phone screen only. Okay, now moving on to the actual desktop environment. Starting with Motorola, the interface looks a bit dated in my opinion. There are shortcuts on the taskbar for various things like Wi-Fi, desktop settings, time and calendar, but a lot of these options open up in dedicated application windows, which does not feel quite seamless. Like you expect a small pop-up to appear, but instead a whole app appears which you then have to resize and shove somewhere. Notifications can be viewed on the side and it looks quite cluttered, and the quick toggles are shoved up to the top right corner. When opening the app drawer, I find the animation to not be very smooth. It's like a two-step animation if you watch carefully. And there is also this bug towards the bottom of the app tray. The taskbar on the Motorola cannot be auto hidden. It just hides when a full screen application is detected. For Samsung Dex, the UI feels a lot more modern and cohesive. The desktop supports widgets. The shortcuts in the taskbar work very similarly to Windows with pop-up menus. You can auto-hide the taskbar as well. The animations also feel more smooth and consistent. When it comes to the number of windows that you can open at once, on Motorola, you can actually launch 10 windows and keep them up all at once. On the 11th application, you will see one of the windows get minimized. On Samsung Dex, it only allows 5 applications by default before one gets minimized, but I know there is a good lock module that basically allows unlimited windows to be up at once without minimizing, basically as much as your memory configuration can hold. On top of that, Dex allows you to have multiple desktop environments, so you can organize the windows according to your needs and preferences across multiple desktops, like separating your work and entertainment applications. Personally, I don't use multiple desktops even on Windows, but it's great that Samsung has implemented it. On Motorola, you don't have this feature of window snapping where you can just drag the window to either edges and it will snap to a split screen. You have to actually click the dedicated window snapping icon, which is not very intuitive. On Samsung, you have support for window snapping both by dragging the window to the edges and also using keyboard shortcuts. When it comes to app continuity, that is reopening an application on a screen that is already open on the other screen, both Moto and Samsung can do it, but on the Motorola, some more complex applications like large games can crash when moving between screens. On the Samsung, this action is a bit more consistent. Look, for general desktop computing, Moto Smart Connect is absolutely fine. You can open multiple apps, resize windows, edit videos, play games, and so on. It's all good. It's just that Samsung's solution is quite a bit more refined. But both Moto Smart Connect and Dex have one major con each, and I would say Moto is a worse offender here. So check this out. In Moto Smart Connect desktop environment, if you open any OTT application for watching content, the mouse pointer gets hidden the moment you play back any content, and it basically makes navigating through the content almost impossible. It doesn't happen with YouTube, but it happens with Netflix and Amazon Prime. You can somewhat use Google Photos for playing back local content. The seek bar keeps disappearing, but it's manageable. Or you can use Next Player as well. The issue does not affect Samsung Dex though. You can watch content on any OTT application without facing this annoying issue. This is a major con with Moto Smart Connect in my opinion and needs to be fixed ASAP, but I don't think they will. Now moving on to Samsung Dex, the issue here is that you cannot play back HDR content. Basically on Samsung Dex, the HDR content is played back using an SDR fallback. Take a look at Moto Smart Connect here. The moment I click to play back HDR content, notice that my monitor blinks. What's happening is the monitor is detecting an HDR signal and is switching to its HDR color profile, and that activates the 1152 zone mini LED backlight with full array local dimming, which provides a true HDR experience with bright highlights and deep shadows. The same happens when I edit a video in LumaFusion. If I select the Rec 2020 or HLG or PQ color space, which are HDR color spaces, once again the monitor activates its HDR profile with the local dimming feature. On Samsung Dex, this does not happen. Here is a side-by-side comparison of Smart Connect versus Dex on the same monitor playing back the same HDR content, and you can clearly see how much better it looks on Motorola, since it is playing back HDR, whereas on Samsung Dex it is just SDR, which is why the local dimming is disabled. Note that they won't look any different if both of them were playing back SDR, because on my monitor the local dimming does not activate for SDR content. So this is basically a difference that is created purely due to HDR versus SDR due to the local dimming being disabled in SDR. So yeah guys, that was it for this video. Overall though, yes, Samsung Dex is the gold standard in this Android external desktop mode scene, which is still unfortunately in its infancy as most brands continue to ignore this game-changing feature. Motorola on the other hand is not bad at all, again considering most other brands don't even offer this feature, but they do need to improve and polish the experience a lot more. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, share and subscribe. Take care and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.